Ladies, gentlemen, and friends beyond the binary, welcome to the Monday Discourse for today, July 5th, 2021. The hot dog days of summer are here. I'm your host, Tristan, and let me just get that microphone in a little bit better spot. And yeah, I am the host of Step Back, and Tristan Won't Shut Up, and I stream on Mondays and Tuesdays. Mondays, I do the Monday Discourse, which is what you're watching right now, which goes from noon until 2. A very good time. With Mia Mulder, who will be joining us shortly. And then on Tuesday night, from 7 to 9, I do Step Back Tonight, a stream that features just yours truly. So, that's all good. I go by he, him pronouns. You can find my work at stepbackhistory.com or tristanwon'tshutup.com. And if you wish to support and keep these videos coming, you can go to patreon.com/stepbackhistory, or if you have an Amazon Prime... I should finish my Patreon spiel. On Patreon, people get to see videos early with no ads and no sponsor breaks, and usually a few days early. So that is for as little as 84 cents a month with a year-long subscription. So good stuff. And you also help more videos happen because, I use Patreon to live, pay bills and stuff. Another thing that you can do to help out is if you have Amazon Prime, you can do a... Let's see. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free Twitch Prime subscription every month on Twitch. And if you use that to help an independent Twitch creator, you're helping people like me, pay our bills and get through everything. And if you choose me, I'll be very grateful. But I do recommend that you choose somebody, because otherwise you're just paying money and it's just leaving it on the table. As far as content goes, my latest video is on... my latest video is on Ruby Ridge and Waco and the turning of the white power movement into the militia movement. Very fun. Very uplifting. My next video, I just finished the first draft of the script today, which, if everything goes according to plan, which it rarely does, that means that I'm on track to get the video done by maybe Thursday, but there's no guarantees on that. But yeah, it's on climate refugees and eco-fascism and sort of the most important political issues of the 21st century. The rest of the 21st century, I guess I should say. What else? And if you have a question for future streams, I'm going to put a link in the chat for you to submit them. We have lots of questions for today, so we probably won't get it to anything you submit today, but I keep them around for at least a month. So if you keep tuning into the streams, you'll hopefully hear your question. And also, it didn't get sent on Twitch for some reason. Let me try that again. There we go. Lastly, I have gotten a few thousand new subscribers since last week, so there's probably a whole lot of new folks here in the chat. If this is your first time here, please make yourself known. Say hello. We have a very vibrant and rich chat community that has been around for quite a while, so please say hello if this is your first time here, and everybody be kind and welcoming. And to answer the overwhelming thing, yes, I got a haircut last week. I did last Wednesday, actually. All right. Next up is let's get me on the horn.
Hello.
Hello.
I hope everything's working. Although you never.
I can see you and hear you.
Perfect. Hello.
What more do you need?
Nothing, really. Need nothing more. Hello. Hope you're well in these summery times.
In these uncertain times. First of all, I guess I should say, who is this person who just arrived in my stream?
This person's Mia Mulder. I make videos on the internet. And we
Nice.
stream together on Mondays.
Mia of House Mulder.
Yes. The Unburnt. 3 Year of Stockholm.
Mia daughter.
Something like that.
Well, welcome.
Thank you. I hear Canada is on fire.
Oh boy, is Canada having a time. Because everyone forgets when they say like, oh, the Arctic is like, 40, 50 degrees. Guess where the Arctic? Guess whose Arctic it is? Yeah, we've had like almost a poetically hot last week. Even today, it is with the humidix here about 41 degrees. So, yeah, been a good week to stay inside.
As the ancient philosopher Bob Burnham has said.
Yeah, we've had some very iconic things like there's this town in British Columbia that last week recorded the hottest temperature ever recorded in Canadian history. A balmy, I think it was like 47.8 degrees Celsius.
Christ.
And about a day after recording the hottest temperature in Canadian history, wildfires went through the town and destroyed about 90% of it. So now it has basically been wiped off the map by wildfires. It is the most climate change thing that has ever happened.
That's horrifying. Literally just wiped off the map.
Mm-hmm.
Christ.
And then a giant fiery asshole showed up in the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah, the ocean is on fire now. So I mean, we're doing great in regards to fixing climate change.
Yeah, we're doing great. This is wonderful.
We're doing great. This year it has been a good reminder that humanity might be able to mitigate the effects of a pandemic. One of the most actionable and like present threats to humanity that has ever seen, and we could barely deal with that. So it's also good to have a direct reminder that anything that's like slightly more abstract than that, we fall apart and just die.
And even COVID, we couldn't really get on top of. We couldn't get people to believe in the disease that was killing people. Like I think COVID's killed like 5 million people now, something like that, and we couldn't even get people to believe in that. So,
yeah, humanity isn't really viable as a species when you think about it.
Yeah, something I don't know. I'm hoping that this summer actually like. This is so wishful thinking, but this feels like the time where climate change really can't just not be taken seriously anymore. It's like too much shit. This seems like this is just me being sheltered and Canadian. This seems like the year where this shit really came home and it became like undeniable, really. But
yeah.
Oh yeah, and also we canceled Canada Day, kind of.
I heard something about there being like big protests.
Well,
I heard that Canada is going down the communist focus tree in Hearts of Iron 4 by burning the royal portraits.
Yeah, because it turns out
daily communism support up 10 every day.
Yeah, it turns out when you dig up the corpses of thousands of Indigenous children, that people don't like that. And so there was a big push to maybe we shouldn't celebrate a country that let that happen, or more likely to say encouraged it to happen and then funded it when the church took it away from the church and turned it into a government thing. So there's been statues being torn down of like racist shitheads and like people who there's some stuff that like I think we're going to where it's like not even America has gone to. Like we tore down things like some fun ones in Manitoba.
You tore down Queen Victoria. I thought that.
we tore down a statue of Queen Victoria and a statue of Queen Elizabeth II. Several statues of Queen Elizabeth II, which says quite a bit about something interesting about where maybe we're going. But also, like, we've there's been a lot of tearing down of statues of Sir John A. Macdonald, or just being like torn down, or like cities removing them. And John A. Macdonald's our first prime minister. So this would be like if people in America started tearing down statues of George Washington.
Yeah.
Which is like, oh dear, we're really getting somewhere. There's like some major streets in Toronto are being pushed to be renamed. Because we have a Dundas Street, which is named after some lord who was a slave trader and involved with residential schools. Ryerson, one of our like biggest universities, is considering getting renamed because it was founded by Ryerson, who was also a architect of the residential school system. I have a whole video on this that I'm making for late July, so we'll hold tight on that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
like you're in a bit of a like Canadian cool zone.
Yeah. Very funny because in my city, London, we've had like our reactionary assholes have reacted by being business owners and having like their signs become passive aggressive. Like I passed by, there's this notorious bar in London called the Ale House, which people gave shit because it was constantly breaking quarantine rules, and it was like you know how businesses have their little sign out front that they change up with like their specials and stuff like that. So they had theirs set up for to blame the Chinese for the virus and all sorts of stuff like that. And I walked by them because one of the things I did last week is I got my second vaccine. Wahoo. But because of construction downtown, the buses make no sense, so I had to walk home. And we passed by this notorious bar, and their sign said, "Remember, yes. Cancel, no. Happy Canada Day." So... And then apparently there was also a Jiffy Lube that was advertising that they were against communism and fascism on their sign, which was like, it's like, this is a Jiffy Lube. It's literally like, ma'am, this is a Wendy's, but it's like a place where people take in their car to get their brake fluid changed.
you gotta take a stance and you gotta respect that.
So yeah.
The phrase, remember, yes, cancel, no. It's such a good indicator of the current mindscape of modern day conservatives. Mm-hmm.
But on Canada Day, I will say, that happened on Canada Day, I was walking around. One of the things that we were doing is typically you wear red on Canada Day because of the Canadian flag, but because to support Indigenous people, they were asking people to wear orange in remembrance of all the kids, and I saw so many orange shirts that day. It's like everybody was wearing it. So that made me a little happy.
That's good.
Yeah.
Love to see it. Orange is a bit of a weird color to pick. Or is that specific to something?
I know that, I think it is, but I don't know what that is. I didn't decide not to Google it, but I never got around to Googling it. But I know that there's a reason. And there's people still hanging orange shirts in front of their houses and stuff like that. It's been pretty cool. It's been pretty boss to see. There's this really awesome house that's on the corner of my street that their entire front lawn is been replaced with raised bed gardening, and they have tons of lawn signs, and they have Palestinian rights lawn signs and orange lawn signs and all that stuff. And I'm this house seems pretty based. I don't know.
This house seems pretty based.
Yeah, it's this is what I want my house to look like. Fuck grass. Nobody needs that. Okay. We did get a super chat from J-Lord before while I was talking. So thank you. Thank you for the 10 Aussie dollars. Thank you for the $10 dues. Sorry.
Thank you for the $10 dues, Bart, mate.
Thanks for the dingoes. All right. Crime is a social issue, and last week a cop was murdered near where I live. When a civilian is killed by a cop in the U.S. or an officer by a suspect in Australia, a life is claimed by a social problem.
I don't fully understand the question.
I don't think it is a question. It just says that a cop was murdered in Australia, which, like, okay. Shouldn't have been out copping. I don't know. I don't mean to judge people for getting attacked by what they were wearing, but wearing a police uniform, you're kind of inviting violence. Just saying.
Oh my God.
But in Minecraft,
Damn, Tristan, I've never seen you this public.
Oh man, I mean, I fucking hate cops in many ways. Anyways, it's hot. The what's it called? The layers of niceties is too stifling. You'll get heat stroke doing that. But yeah, okay. So a cop was killed in Australia, like, boohoo.
Oh my God, Tristan.
If there was just not cops, this wouldn't have happened. All I'm saying.
That's a good answer. Killing people is bad, I will say, but yes. I also agree with what you say. Anyway, this is actually like a bit of a hot topic in Sweden right now because we had like one of our first ever sort of like cop killer events, which has freaked a lot of people out. So that's where we're in our own little sort of cop discourse currently, which is great because Sweden, as always, is like 2 years behind everyone else. I'm seeing a lot of people wear like the thin blue line marker in support of cops, and I'm just like, you gotta know those have a connotation. Right? You gotta know that they mean something more than just supporting that people don't die. Like,
yeah, we're past that point. I just also remembered out of just one more thing out of the cool zone of Canada in the last week, and that is, and people have been like saying, "Ooh, bad call," but somebody, we don't know who, has been setting churches on fire. Because one of the big things about this is that the residential schools were run by the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
And the Catholic Church, the Pope, the cool Pope, has decided to not apologize for it.
Great.
And like did a sort of statement that was like, "I'm sorry that this happened to you. I'm sorry that you feel that way.
I'm sorry you feel upset."
Yeah, and, like literally. But and so now there's been some like random like Catholic churches are being set on fire around the country. So
that's not. No, I'm not going to tell anyone how to do their thing, but I feel like
it's on the list of
cool zone activities.
Cool zone activities, yeah. Canada gets hot for 1 week, and we just lose our shit. So,
the U.S. has melt on May. You have this.
Yeah, and also a Canadian team almost won the hockey championship, but then didn't, and that made people very angry as well. So. Because it was the first time a Canadian team would have won the Stanley Cup in a long time. So they were like, this is a big deal. Yeah. Canada decided that it liked Quebec again when the Canadiens were going to win.
They're pro-Canada when they can win.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure that happens a lot. Also, I'm noticing that every European TikTok account is basically... I think you guys are having another world war, as far as I can tell. If social media is teaching me anything, like French TikTokers and Italian TikTokers are like ceremonially like defacing the other country's foods. People are finding Polish flags everywhere. I don't know. Europe is. I guess you guys are.
Is this a sports ball thing?
Yes.
I haven't at all kept up. Like, I think sports ball is still happening, but I know my country was eliminated, so I care even less. The way I know that is because a friend told me that Ukraine knocked Sweden out, so we wouldn't get the English versus Swedish like death match. And that's the only reason why I know about this. I haven't looked it up. Someone had to come find me and tell me that Sweden aren't part of it anymore.
I just started seeing things on the internet that was like a French guy who was putting pineapples on pizza to make the Italians mad. and then the Italians started putting baguettes in blenders to piss off the. I mean, that's just normal European politics, but
Yeah. That is just normal European politics. That's the EU working as intended.
Mm-hmm. The most fun TikTok genre is taking a video still and then finding the flag of a country somewhere in it by like moving it around and tweaking things.
Yeah. Typically Poland.
Poland started it, but now everyone's doing it. But then they found like, and now there's like wars. Like there's a guy who finds German flags, and then what they'll do is they'll take the video of the guy finding the German flag, and then the Polish guy will find a Polish flag in the German flag, and like, it's a whole thing.
You're going so far down this flags out of flags like mindscape, which the algorithm treats us so very differently, because the only thing I'm seeing on TikTok recently is people making jokes about like server administration.
I see.
I don't know why I'm getting that, but I haven't seen a flag meme in a long time.
Yeah, we were talking in DMs this morning, and I was saying that like I put a lot of work into making sure that my. See, the thing is, here's the thing. Every day, at the end of the day, right before we go to bed, I show Kelly, my wife, all the TikToks that I found that were funny that day. And this, if you've ever been in a long-term relationship with somebody, the number one rule for a long, healthy relationship is do everything you can to find ways to drive the other one insane. So I always try to find things that she hates. And that has led to an algorithmic, and she really like, things that I would say on the internet would be defined as cursed are things that bug her. So I am basically like deep into the most cursed TikToks. It's great. It is a blessed timeline.
I don't see. This is why I'll never get TikTok at this. Like honestly, it's too chaotic for me. Honestly.
I think that I wouldn't have gotten it as a millennial, but I also have attention deficit hyperactive disorder, and TikTok was designed for me specifically in that sense. So I think I'm getting at least part of it.
Maybe. I feel like TikTok is one of those things that I can get into very much when I'm not sober, because I don't think I couldn't. It's a bit overstimulating a little bit. Like sometimes it's hard to understand if you're like overstimulated or if TikTok is just that weird.
And as somebody who has chronic dopamine deficiency, it's great. It actually gives me my blessed brain juice that nothing else can give.
You know that, but that's why I'm like a bit scared of TikTok, because you know that experiment of like a rat who can like press a button to release happy juice in brain, and will do that instead of food. I'm becoming that rat, and TikTok is the button. It gives me a tiny bit of happy juice every single time, and I love it. But I need to eat. I need to work out. I need to go outside. I can't do that.
Yeah, I had an ADHD hyperfocus today that was sort of in that vein. One thing this is a side thing about ADHD that not a lot of people who don't have it know. But not only are you not able to pay attention to something, but if something does hit your brain in that weird way, you can't.
Stopped.
You can't pull yourself out of it. So yesterday I decided that I was going to figure out how to do coding in Python again, because I keep wanting to make this tool for Dungeons and Dragons I've been working on. And I guess my brain decided that the perfect time to think about these problems, to the point where I couldn't do anything else but go to the computer and try and write this all down, was 4:45 in the morning on yesterday, on Sunday. So I literally woke up out of bed and had to go and work with Python, and I did for a good chunk of the day yesterday, and so yeah.
I don't have that quite as much, but I get the vibe. Like once every 2 or 3 months, I'll get my own hyperfixation where I try to learn like Unity programming because I want to make a city builder. Very similar vibes. That's what I'm saying.
I can feel it. Yeah, I'm just. Luckily, this is a useful one. Like, if I just have a few more hyper focuses, I'll just become a full stack developer. And then I can what's it called? Then so my side hobby of computer programming can become my main hustle, so that I can replace the daily grind of making YouTube videos. It's very European that my hobby is a job.
Yeah.
Oh, another super chat from J-Lord. Thank you for the dingoes. Crime is often a social problem, and when a member of the public or police officer dies as a result, the same casualty of a social ill. Okay. The social ill being that cops exist is the thing.
I'm guessing it was like there are cops are bad, but there are also other things that like drive crime and like drive violence. I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Which is not wrong.
Yeah. My Germany is showing. Oh God. So okay, then I think that the needing public would need to know, if you're making a city builder, what is Mia's city builder? What are you going to do that Skylines doesn't? What does Mia do that Skylines don't?
I have a dream of one day, if I ever like make too much money that I don't know what to do with, that I'm like gonna start my own sort of production company, and the first thing that I'm gonna hire people to do for me is make basically workers and resources over the public, but like in cities, in the vibe of City Skylines, but also set before, like set in like the 1820s or some shit, or like in the 1780s, like in that type of time period. Because I want to have a city builder where if I demolish a house, the family has to go somewhere. But I also want to have a city builder where you start off as like subsistence farmers and like slowly transition into urbanization.
That sounds really cool. I like it.
Right?
Yes, and also like on top of that, like I always think like one of the things about city builders that's like ridiculously unrealistic is that they don't factor in that demolishing things costs money.
Yeah.
And so like, and that they don't have any mechanism for like repurposing and stuff like that. And so yeah, and with shifting economic needs, the idea of like how a city changes organically. Basically, the whole thing that Do Not Eat was complaining about to lead to the Franklin series.
Exactly. That's literally what I want. Yeah.
Nice.
That all of that with like a smidge of sort of like grand strategy elements, like where you can like zoom out from the map and do diplomacy and shit. So it's not just your city in a microcosm. It's actually like within a world context.
Nice.
That is my dream. It will never be real because it's too good to exist.
I had a dream of a game, but then basically Wildermyth made like 50% of it. So there you go. What if Dwarf Fortress? What if Dwarf Fortress, but instead it made a setting for you to play an RPG in? There you go.
There you go.
Okay. Let's see what we got for questions. We are like we're like off form. We're an extra 10 minutes off of our typical time that we do our break into question time until question period starts. Oh, how is Swedish political chaos going?
Oh, I don't know. We haven't had a government for a week. We still don't have a government. They're gonna vote on Wednesday whether or not we have a government or not. The liberal parties have like split amongst themselves, and so the center party will remain with the government, while the liberal party have decided to fuck the government and will instead support a conservative government. So we're probably just going to have the same government as we had before, just even more fragile than in the last 3 years, which was the most fragile government in Swedish history. So we're doing great.
It
Basically,
sounds pretty solid.
At least we don't have. At least we won't have like decommissioned, unregulated rent control. So that's good.
So when the police try to give you shit for, like, I don't know, doing biker crank, you can just say to them, well, there's no government, so, like,
There's
who's
no
gonna
government.
Yeah, why would you stop me?
Under what law are you going to prosecute me?
Yeah,
I have broken no law of no country because I am nowhere. And then they fade. No, but that's basically the vibe. Seems to have been like good for like lefty polls. Weirdly enough, the left party has been like given a lot of like polling support because they are the only ones who like did what people want. Turns out people like that, and whereas everyone else has sort of dropped in the polls a little bit, probably because no one else has said anything definitively, and it seems like we will have one political party that does anything. So, in the next election, it's going to be interesting to see how things go.
I hope cool stuff happens.
Yeah. Probably won't, unfortunately, but hopefully.
Yeah, I did see the thing you all told me about, like, Scandinavian, like lack of sociability or whatever I finally saw it in the wild, and it was a TikTok about, like, someone was asking the prime minister of Finland or whatever how they managed COVID so well, and then it was just a picture of, like, Finnish subway stations and, like, random streets where everyone's, like, spaced super far apart even before, and it's like all of these were before the pandemic. I was like, oh.
Yeah. Sweden has that too, but it didn't help us that much.
It's probably because I watched a video where they made a joke out about how every Scandinavian language, the word for cook is just cock, which is solid.
Cock. Yeah, it's cock.
And even in Finland, it's cocky.
Of course it is, because Finnish is a wonderful language.
Finns are like what's it called? The anti-minimalist language. Why take one letter to say something when you could take 76? It's like Welsh.
I'm trying to. There are some words in Finnish that are really fun, but I don't remember what they are. This is like completely useless anecdote that I'm saying.
All right. Okay. The first question, though, is specifically for you, and it actually is kind of in your area of research too.
Oh shit!
Both in today and the past. So this is from a guy named Steve. Have you ever heard of a man named Adolf Brand?
Ooh, the name rings a bell.
So Adolf Brand, I guess, was a gay activist in the 1920s who flirted heavily with making friendships with the NSDAP, otherwise the Nazis.
Yeah.
Do you see any parallels today with assimilation, gays and lesbians flirting with fascism, particularly in Europe?
I'm not sure if I would say anything particular in Europe, because I really don't think that Europe is the center of like sexological thought, if that makes sense. It's very much America at this point. I feel like the sort of science of sexology really shifted to America like sometime in the 1930s, and then has just stayed there. Like being very sort of popular in New York primarily, but also like more America generally. Europe hasn't really done that much in terms of that stuff related to, so I can't really say. Okay. So I'm reading up on him right now. So he was involved in the with the same organization that Magnus Hirschfeld led. Um, yeah, I'm not I can't say too much about this guy because I don't know that much about him. So I don't want to say anything too judgy. But there's definitely there's definitely been parallels with sort of assimilation gaze, historically and more modern, where ever since there has been a sort of like LGBT movement, there have been those who have been wanting to sort of align that LGBT movement with ideologies that are actively hostile to them, in the belief that that will sort of like cancel out each other. But that is has historically not gone very well. Uh, it has sometimes worked, unfortunately, like in a weird way. So I can't say it's never works, but it often doesn't work. But sometimes it kind of does, because a lot of like European communist parties who were very like anti-LGBT, like during the 50s and 60s, had a lot of LGBT people who did this sort of like assimilation gay style activism, but towards the left. And that kind of worked over time. Like the left now is sort of like the more cultural left, if you were to say the new left, is it's very like pro LGBT rights, right? So the things that we're seeing today in terms of assimilation politics is very much towards the right, but that has never really worked, as far as I know. I can't really think of any historical example where that has worked, neither then nor now, unfortunately.
Someone in the chat
I
just
don't really know. Yeah.
there's like talk about sock dems, and someone just said sock dems are embarrassed liberals. But so because I always like that makes me think of how in East Germany, the like the party powers made an entire political party that was trying to that was designed just to absorb the energy of the former Nazis.
Mm-hmm.
It was like this communist party that was also nationalistic and like bigoted, just so that they had a communist party for all of the bigots to vote for. And it's like, oh,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's going to work the same way. And I believe it's the forerunner to Alternative for Deutschland, so it went really well.
Right.
So that's great. Okay, so got another 10 dingoes saying, I'm still a sock dem at heart. I'm sorry. We can't all be perfect. But I admit...
Okay.
But
As long as we have good political intentions, I think it's fine.
Sure. But I admit people have it so good in Australia, they're complacent that they don't want any change at all. Would you say that's true in social democratic Sweden as well?
Not really. I would say that, some powers that be would like people to think this, but I don't necessarily think it's true at all. Like, the idea that people are too complacent to want social change is an idea that I definitely think only really exists among people who are too well-to-do and too far to the left to support the government or support the current status quo. Because if you were in support of the status quo, you wouldn't even care that people are too complacent. They would just be like, it's fine, everything's fine. So most people who want things to change are more to the left, obviously. But if you think that people have it too good and people aren't active, that just means that you aren't looking right. Because there are tons of people, like even in the richest countries in the world, that are, that aren't doing that great and want to improve society. There are also people who do fairly well and want to change society. I just think it takes a different form in areas, like in countries where there are other avenues of politics, if that makes sense. Like in nations that are a bit more like resisting to political change, I think that people take out that change in a bit more dramatic fashion, like in terms of like street protests and more like radical proposals. Whereas in countries where there are like more avenues for social change, people will do that change, but it'll just be like through normal paperwork, so it's not as noticeable. So like it's easier to notice like a massive protest in the U.S., for example, than it is to notice a procedural change in an office building somewhere in Norway.
Yeah.
You know?
America tears itself apart now on the regular because voting effectively does not accomplish anything anymore in that country.
Yeah, voting at all doesn't really affect anything in that country. Like, basically,
Mm-hmm.
like, barely. I really ended up on this side of here that like, even with Democrats controlling all fucking branches of government, they still can't do fuck all. So like, what's the point in them winning?
Yeah.
Anyway,
Um,
that's my take on the issue. I hope that's a good answer.
yeah. There was something I could add to that, which is in Canada it seems that is different because we have had a lot of our like progressive social change. Like our social democrats can't make any leeway because of a very culturally powerful idea that because we can constantly downwardly compare to the US, then we don't have to that we think that we're fine. And like it's like honestly like this whole new thing going on is like Canadians being like actually shocked about the idea that Canada is a racist country. Like they're literally like, "What? We're not a racist country. Look at America." And like
America's the racist one.
whenever we want to do something like put in like, you know, national pharmacare or something like that, it's always like, we mean we have public health care, it's fine. And it's like it's slightly better than the like because like in Canada, if as long as what we have is slightly better than how they have it in America, then through like cultural osmosis and everything like that, we like it just completely pushes down our any attempt to fix things. And the only time that we make major political change is when it's a way for us to have one thing slightly better than the United States. And it's like I could write a whole like treatise on like how Canadian actually I made a whole video about it basically about how Canadian identity is almost exclusive because it's an even more artificial country than most countries, and all countries are artificial. But like ours is even more artificial, and the main thing that we use to make 10 very different places and 13 very different places all have a single identity is by just defining ourselves in what we are, how we are not like America, despite being almost exactly like America. And compared to like, you know, European democracies, just our same systems are all utter shit. But it does mean that we can have people just like the will for positive political change in this country is completely gone because America is just so dominant in our cultural imagination that as long as we're not like them, then we're fine. King Cyrus sorry.
No, and I think there's probably a little bit of that like in most countries as well. Like people will always compare themselves, and I think that might cause complacency. But I don't think that them being like complacent due to things being good is necessarily a thing. I think it's just like shitty comparisons.
Yeah. The whole like if things are too good, then we become decadent and weak is sort of a fascist thing to think.
Yeah. It's also the I think overarching plot of Dune, and also that system and that way of looking at the world just sucks.
Yeah.
Because you got to put humanity on the golden path.
Leto the Second isn't right, even though he's a giant sex worm man. Spoiler alert.
Don't listen to the giant sex worm man. Don't do it.
Don't cut off faster than light travel because everybody needs to figure out how to go speed of light their own way. It's not going to make things better.
Don't force people to create null ships by telepathically seeing where they all are.
Don't constantly clone your best friend until they eventually betray you, and then you kill them, and then you clone another one. Yeah, what's it called?
Good shit.
You read past the third book, shit starts getting weird.
It's real weird. The first one is like really nice, cohesive storytelling. The second one kind of builds on that, and by the third, you're like, Frank Herbert for sure took acid for writing every single word in this book, right?
I mean, Children of Dune's not super weird. When you get to God Emperor, that's when things start
God
getting
Emperor
really
is the weird
weird.
one. Yeah.
That's when you're like, oh, Duncan Idaho brought back from the dead. Yeah, now he does it like every 40, 50 years or so whenever Duncan Idaho eventually betrays him. And it's like, I've now resurrected and killed him so many times that like I just know his psyche to the point where I know when he's going to betray me, and that's when we kill him and we make another one.
The fact that he betrays himself literally to Adolf Hitler and people still think that he's like the hero sometimes.
So
I need to reread those books.
So I have some interesting news.
Oh, by the way, I interrupted King Cyrus the Great super chat, and
Persian Emperor King Cyrus the Great has given me $5. First of all, thank you. I think I've made this joke before to you specifically, but thank you for sending the Jews back to Jerusalem. It was very kind of you. And yeah, overall, above average Persian Emperor, gotta say. Whoa, something nice just happened too. Eva 970 just subscribed for 2 months. Thank you very much, Eva 970. All right, so what's it say? Olympics are going full anti-black and scientific racism, it seems, and the intersection of transphobia is clear too. Oh yeah, I forgot.
Yeah. No, you go.
Oh, and also, cause we can't go back. Thank you for subscribing with Amazon Prime, much appreciated. Yeah, so have you kept up on this story?
I haven't kept up fully, but I'm aware of what's happening with it. I've seen it being mentioned occasionally here and there, and things are messed up, yo.
Yeah, so already this is like the worst Olympics.
Yes.
Because they're hosting it in the middle of a pandemic. But I guess, despite the fact that everybody has been shouting at them constantly for years to not do it.
Yeah.
But now they're banning a sort of swim cap that is primarily used for black swimmers.
Yeah, for black hair made by like a black company as well. Like, as far as I could understand from that story, it was specifically from like that company.
That is weird. They also disqualified a 100-meter dash runner for using cannabis or for having THC in her blood.
Yeah, something that is like legal in most parts of the country.
You know, maybe like plus it's cannabis. Like, have you ever run while high? Like, if anything, you should just get a couple seconds taken off your time.
Yeah, someone tweeted about that, being like, if someone can run while high, they should be allowed to. Because like that's an achievement in and of themselves.
Yeah. But the fact that runner is black, and it's like a lot of like, oh. And I don't know, like the intersection of transphobia is clear too. I
think there are two athletes I think that I've noticed that have been restricted away from the Olympics because of like a similar sort of biological restriction that Cassius Semenya had, where like the levels of androgens, like testosterone, is like too high in some women, which gives them like an unfair advantage. They say, and this is a sort of they become more strict with the testosterone line, like partially because like there have been
people are doing HGH or something.
Sorry, what?
I'm guessing it's an excuse to be transphobic, but they're disguising it as the people who are doing what's it called, human growth hormone stuff.
I think so, yeah. So they're and part of that is they've drawn a very like arbitrary line of like what is normal for like a normal female like testosterone level, which just happens to include like a significant amount of black women. Um,
Yeah. Isn't if I remember correctly, second I got banned somebody.
uh-oh.
Is there I think that this Olympics is also going to have the first trans athlete I think to participate.
Oh shit! I had no idea.
Yeah, I think that
That,
there's
that
a
that's
trans.
gonna be fun.
Yeah, especially because it's a trans woman participating in deadlifting.
Oh, that'll be great.
Yeah, the headlines write themselves.
Yeah,
Um,
I love being a political issue.
yeah, this is definitely a very troubling set of circumstances. Um, and it may I don't know. Like the thing is, does this speak to the Olympics Commission? Does this speak to the fact that this is at least up until recently Shinzo Abe's Japan, which was moving towards a more right wing nationalism, or who's making these decisions?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of everything, right? And I think it's also like part of, I guess, the Olympic Committee being like, I think they prefer to err on the side of caution in the sense of like not changing too much, which unfortunately means, um, just like shutting out more and more people, and most of them just happening to be black accidentally.
Yeah, I remember that this was a big deal when what's her name, Serena Williams got into tennis. Like when she broke into the big scene in like tennis and like took it over because apparently she's a tennis like god. But
Yeah,
like before that, tennis was like women's tennis was like this sport of like very coded in like femininity and like all that kind of stuff, and just like Serena Williams shows up and she like is just really good, and they try to like they keep trying to talk about like trying to find ways to like say why she's not qualified or why bad because she just didn't come in and play the role that they wanted to do for the image they wanted to have for the sport, which was white mostly.
yeah,
Do you remember? If I remember
yeah,
correctly, when she was like she was pregnant a few years ago and had like a serious medical issue, and like the doctors just flat out didn't believe her. Like, man,
yeah. Like this is how world class athletes are treated when black. Can you like imagine the fucking nightmare most people have to undergo,
yeah,
right? Like if even being a world class athlete doesn't give you any special privileges in this area, like Jesus.
like keep being good at tennis, Serena Williams. You're making a point. Um, okay. Or if you don't want to do tennis anymore, that's also cool. I'm no pressure. For Serena Williams, who's most definitely watching this stream.
If you're
um,
watching the stream, please come on. We'll talk
yeah,
about tennis. I don't know any tennis, and I've never watched a game, but I'd love to talk to you.
yes. First of all, have you played badminton? And is there a rivalry? Do you have shit talk about badminton players? I must know.
I must know.
I have this. Oh, I have this feeling.
Freaking love
This
Also,
yes,
speaking of nothing, I freaking love badminton as a sport because it really is just like a sport for those of us who didn't really want to go to gym class because did not want to. It was scary, people kicking everything everywhere. Uh, I was very happy sitting with like nerds
yeah.
playing badminton.
Also,
Thank
it's
God intended.
in English. It's called the shuttlecock, which is also funny.
That is very funny.
Okay, next question we got here is also from King Cyrus the Great because he gave me another $5. Thank you very much. Thank you for your gold dragons or whatever. I don't remember what the Persian money was called, but thank you for those. I have a feeling Dick Cheney and Henry Kissinger are Viltrumites in disguise. Also, Invincible is a great series indeed, especially the comics. Now, you were recently
I
told me you were watching it.
Yes, I've recently started watching it. I'm almost done with it. It's a very good show. I didn't think that I would like it as much as I did, but it turned out to be great. It's a good show.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if Dick Cheney or Kissinger's a Viltrumite because I get the feeling that Viltrumites are like supposed to be strong and healthy for thousands of years and not like aging cheese, like Dick Cheney is.
Dick Cheney
Or
literally has to wear a medical alert bracelet because he doesn't have a pulse.
My God.
Because he has a robot heart.
How old is Henry Kissinger?
He's in his 90s.
He's 98. Wait, he's German?
Makes sense.
Wait, what? Heinz Alfred Kissinger. Huh. Fled Nazi Germany. Look at that. When he was 15 years old, he fled Nazi persecution.
There you
Good
go.
on his family, but also damn, he old.
Reminds me, I don't think I've heard from Hans Blix in a while. Anyone know if he's doing okay? I think he's one of yours.
God, I don't remember anything.
He was the UN
Yeah,
weapons
he's still
inspector.
alive. Yeah, he's still alive. He's also ancient. 93.
Has Mia never heard Kissinger speak? That is true. He has a pretty thick German accent.
I might not have actually.
Yeah, his yeah.
Listen, also America is full of like various regional accents.
I don't know if you saw this.
I can't keep track of like West Virginian or Texan or Minnesotan. Like you have like America has like 14 different like distinct dialects who are not mutually intelligible. I just thought that some of them just sounded like Henry Kissinger, I guess.
It reminds me that there was this map of America that showed like the ethnic origin of people in every state, and in America, like huge swaths of the country, predominantly from Germany.
Yeah.
America is a German country in many ways, but
It explains a lot. It explains quite a lot, actually, when you think about it.
German culture, British politics.
German, well-known regional American accent. Yes! Yes, it is!
I have very good American accent radar, so that's like one of my favorite things. I love American accents. They're so special.
Why? You're like the third person amongst YouTubers who have said this. That American accents are like cool and like fun, or I've heard some people like call it sexy. I don't get it. It just sounds. Sounds American.
There's different types of fun accents. Like my wife has an accent and it's adorable. This sort of like Chicago accent.
I would have no idea what that is. I've been to Chicago and I would have no idea what that is. I literally, when I went to Chicago, what I said when I landed to make fun of the friends I had there was, "Hey, I'm walking here," because I thought it was Chicago.
Oh boy.
It turns out I was wrong.
I know
a lot of geography. I know a lot of linguistics. I don't know fuck all about America.
Also, I just love like one of my friends who I play D&D with has this like really strong Appalachian accent, like I think she's from Kentucky or West Virginia or both, and it's just like, oh man, it's a pretty cool sounding accent. But yes,
God, I gotta hang out with more Americans.
This reminds me of a thing that was said about Canada that I think you might enjoy.
What did you say? Sorry.
This reminds me of a saying about Canada that I think you would enjoy, which was, Canada could have had the opportunity to have American technology, British or French cuisine, and British culture, but instead it has American culture, British cuisine, and French technology.
That's incredible.
Just a fun one. Alrighty. And yeah, I am following both chats. Don't worry.
you can see.
Okay.
The thing that fucks with me a little bit, speaking of this though, is like tangentially related to this is because like America does have regional accents, but it's only because America is like huge, like gigantic, right? And because like my country is like the size of, I think my country's smaller than California, or something on like roughly the same size, like tiny, and and like my country has like also very regional accents depending on the town, because the towns here have in Europe have been there for like 8 million years, which is not really something that America has. So America right now, in terms of dialects, is at its best that it will ever be. It's like climate change, where it's like it's as monotone as it will be. It will only get worse from here. You'll only develop more regional accents.
Fair. Though, like there's other factors, because like when I think of like the UK, where the UK has mutually unintelligible dialects that are like within like 3 block areas.
Yeah.
Where it's like I can tell from your accent that you're from the west part of town. Like what?
Yeah. But when I landed in the UK last, I have a hard time understanding sometimes.
I had a friend who did a semester in Scotland, and it's a mutually unintelligible language. Scottish is a different language from English in many ways.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. The next question we got here is from Matt Lipton. The second question from the list that we've done. We're on
an hour in. We're doing great. I'll tone down the.
It's all good. This is what they're here for. So, this is Matt Lipton, who's a regular. If either were Americans, would Jason Kenney or Derek Sloan be butting up with Josh Hawley or other Stop the Steal Republicans? Wow. That's a question for me specifically. So Jason,
I have no clue.
So Jason Kenney is the premier of Alberta, the Hell Province, and Derek Sloan. I'm trying to remember who Derek Sloan is. He's an MP, I know that, but let's see. He was expelled from the Conservative Party caucus after it was revealed he had received a donation from white supremacist Paul Fromm. Okay. Party leader Aaron O'Toole explained that the decision had been made because of a pattern of destructive behavior involving multiple incidences. Yeah. So would they be butting up with Josh Hawley and other Stop the Steal Republicans? Oh, most definitely. A lot of the times, like Canadian conservative, Canada's only like not become the hellscape America has because of this like very strong political culture where some against their own political ambitions, the Conservative Party is convinced that if they go too socially conservative, they'll lose votes. And so they distance themselves from like these open white supremacists and stuff like that. They don't flirt with them as much. And that's like the only thing keeping this country from utter collapse. So, yeah.
Mm.
But yeah, Jason Kenney. I do like that oil became unprofitable in Alberta because it's so expensive to get oil in the way that we do it in Alberta that they've moved to coal mining. So, forward-thinking, progressive future.
Definitely going to save the world on that note.
Mm-hmm. Okay, next up we got a question. This one is about Milo Snuffleupagus.
Oh. Yes.
Former...
the straightest man in the universe.
Yeah, called himself a former sodomite. I forgot about that. He went ex-gay or whatever.
Yeah, he has become the guy from Tiger King.
It's like
straight.
It's like who's that guy who wrote a bunch of books about how to sexually assault women and then like became like a super Christian who doesn't allow discussion of fornication on his forums. I don't remember that guy's name anymore, but it's like, oh boy.
Yeah, a lot of these people are really like they have stuff going on. Let's say.
Yeah. So Milo Yiannopoulos. So suppose
Yeah.
somebody is some kind of LGBTQ, which Milo swears up and down that he is not, and they suddenly start insisting that they're not anymore. It's fairly obvious they're only doing it for attention. Is it still bad to disregard their self-identification? Like if someone goes on PragerU to talk about how they're not gay or not trans anymore, would it be bad to respond with "You're obviously still gay/trans"?
So I wouldn't say I probably wouldn't say that Milo is still gay. I think that would be a bit too far to say. I would say that I probably would respect their self-identification. That doesn't mean I have to think that it's like not funny as shit. Because I think Milo Yiannopoulos like journey, let's say, authentic or not, is very funny. Um, it is very, if I may use the word, stupid. And that would be the case of many people who use their status as, or use the sort of like self-identification and like self-exploration of sexuality and gender to bash other people. Because I think that if Milo, for example, for whatever reason, decided to like convert from being gay, being straight, but also then like stopped being an asshole about it, and maybe he like got a job at Dairy Queen and just didn't bother anyone again. I don't think anyone would care, in the same way that like if someone detransitions from being trans, that's fine. Most people like, and if they're like pro-trans or whatever, that's fine. Like people are fine with that. But if they use it, like if they use that as a sort of like sledgehammer against the family, as H. Bomber would say, or as like against the LGBT family, they, it just becomes it gains some sort of like cosmic irony that just makes it fun. Uh, and that's I think that's where it comes from a little bit. But I would still like respect it. I wouldn't say that like someone who does it is lying about it necessarily. I would say that I fully believe Milo when he says that he is a reformed sodomite. He's still a wreck outside of that. Like he's still a chaotic, weird person outside of that. I don't think that's like the self-identification actually like matters in regards to that.
Yeah, fair. The best way I can think to describe Milo Yiannopoulos is he's somehow. Now this is going to be my next level conspiracy theory. Milo Yiannopoulos is an extremely, extremely deep Sacha Baron Cohen character. There's a movie called Milo that'll be coming out in the future where we'll find out that Sacha Baron Cohen was Milo Yiannopoulos this entire time.
Listen, I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. Like, I could see that happening.
Just, he feels like a Sacha Baron Cohen character come to life.
Yeah. I'm, like, Sacha Baron Cohen has changed the game a little.
Uh-oh. No.
In general, you don't know if it's real or not anymore.
All right, we just lost, like, about the last 20 seconds of what you said because you froze.
Damn. Oh, I'm sorry.
So
I was just gonna say that, like, everything... Whenever something outrageous happens now in public, we can't ever be sure if it's real or not, just because Sacha Baron Cohen exists, and it may as well be him doing something for, like, Borat 3 or some shit.
I mean, if it turned out that Sacha Baron Cohen was just the Norse god Loki in disguise to be a god of mischief, I feel like if there was anybody who I would think to be a living god of mischief, I would think it would probably be Mr. Baron Cohen.
Yeah.
Hello, my name Borat, the XX sodomite. Oh God.
Like that's the Borat line. That's why I think Milo is funny. Like his sexuality doesn't really matter why he's funny. Like I'm saying funny in a sad way. He's a sad man, and we should all feel very sorry for him, but no pity because he doesn't deserve it. he's funny for a myriad of reasons, but none of them have to do with his sexuality. Like none of them have to do with that. Like it doesn't. Like to me, it doesn't really matter because he's just like he is, as you say, a Sacha Baron Cohen character.
When he was losing, like when he was like almost broke about a year ago, and he was trying to like just hawk his shit on the internet, and like you just get like a view of the kinds of things that he bought when he was like swimming in money, and it was just the most ridiculous dumb shit. It was just like, oh man.
There's a part of you that goes like, did you not think about what would happen after like the game is over? Did you think that you could ride this train forever?
Oh.
Like I have anxiety about my retirement now, and I like I first of all I don't even have like a massive multimedia empire, and I've only been doing it for like a tiny amount compared to the amount of time that Milo used to do his shtick. He never thought about this. Like he never thought about long-term planning.
Oh my god.
Again, funny character.
Did Milo actually say that dogs hated him when he was gay, and now they love him?
Yes, he did. God. He said something that like usually when he walked past, I think he walked past a dog or a friend had a dog, and they would always like bark at him or like come at him. But now that he's reformed, they don't do that anymore.
Okay, he has to be a Sacha Baron Cohen character. That's just too. That feels like one of his jokes.
But there's a part of me that's like, Sacha Baron Cohen must have based his comedy on something, and I'm just thinking that Milo has to be sort of the blueprint.
Yeah.
Because no one can come up with a person like that. No one can like invent a character like Milo, because you can only have a character like Milo by being weird as he is.
Yeah, fair. Oh boy. Okay.
I don't need to engage with more with Milo Yiannopoulos content, because that'll just give him more of a platform. We had a few years where he was just gone for a while, and that was wonderful times. But he is very funny when he reemerges, especially because he doesn't have any power. If he has power, I'm scared. But he doesn't have any. We can just make fun of him.
Somebody in the chat just invoked the name of another internet character from the olden times, Tucker Max, which is like, oh my, that's a name I have not heard in a long time. He had a blog. Okay, Tucker Max was a blogger from the time when people still read blogs. And he basically just made up funny stories that involved him being really cool and having sex a lot. But then like he did like a really hard rebrand into becoming like a social media marketing like consultant or something. But he still goes by this name, Tucker Max. And so it's just like, it's the weirdest thing. It's like from the primordial internet. Like
yeah, this was before my time. I think this is when I was still like in the paddling pool of the Swedish internet.
Oh boy,
I was like hanging out on Lunarstorm or something.
Yeah, I remember it being more of a thing when I was like in high school. So this would have been like 2002 to 2006, and it wasn't even that big back then. But the fact is, he went from being like, it was very much like early 2000s bro humor, so it was like very misogynistic and shit, but then he like transitioned to like this like
I saw someone. Sorry, you go. I'm sorry, I keep interrupting you.
But he's like now, yeah, he's like rebranded to becoming like an inspirational speaker and stuff like that. He wrote a book called I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell. That was like the big thing.
Hope They Serve Beer in Hell.
And Assholes Finish First.
This was made into a movie.
Oh yeah, I've seen that movie. It is bad. He was sort of like, you remember Maddox?
No.
Okay. It was sort of from that period. It's just like people making up characters that are like, I am an awesome, cool person. And it's like, okay, sure. It was a whole thing. Listen, men...
What a weird time in the internet.
Like, men are, in general are never at their best. but the early 2000s was men at their particularly not best. So I apologize. Okay. Now, shall we talk? Now we got a question from our not Dutch person with a Dutch name, Orange Man.
Lovely.
How do leftists take back the conversation on the EU's problems and its inherent flaws in a time where anti-EU sentiment and action is done mostly by and for conservatives?
Could you copy paste that?
Sure. But you know, like all the people on Twitter who are like, who have globe emojis in their Twitter handle and like have EU flags, how do you shit on them without being like roped into like the kind of control of the narrative that the right have over that sort of Euroscepticism?
I think it's just to be more. I think it's just like be allied with like pro EU people when it comes to like dealing with like far right interests, right? I think that's fine, and then just independently, like advocate for a type of like Euroscepticism, maybe not in the sense of like in the same way as conservatives do, but you could do it in the sense of like. I mean, I'm just thinking like in the example of like the Swedish Left Party, for example, they've been running on a fairly like Eurocritical platform for quite a while, and I think that's sort of the way to do it too, because that whenever people talk about like the flaws of the EU in Sweden, I feel like it is a bit more balanced than it is like internationally, or at least on the internet, where there are both left-wing and right-wing like oppositions to the European Union, but the solutions are radically different. I feel like a lot of the left usually wants to like reform a lot of the European Union, whereas a lot of far righters want to just like leave it. So I don't think that by individually having a Eurosceptic or Eurocritical platform, you're like boosting any conservative or any far right viewpoint, because I don't think that they're the same viewpoints. I think that they're very different.
Yeah, it feels like it's a situation where don't be Jimmy Dore. Don't pull a Jimmy Dore and realize that people who are arguing against the same thing that you're arguing against means that they're your friends.
Sorry, you wrote it out.
Oh, sorry. Basically, just like don't be a Jimmy Dore. Don't realize that just because somebody is arguing against the same people that you're arguing against, it does not mean they're your friends.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think it's very possible to be pro EU in concept, but like be very critical of it. And I think that that's a level of nuance that it's easier to convert most mainstream people into, and that does not gel well with far right people who are anti-EU.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a good way to do it.
And also, if you're going to be Eurocritical, be aware of like what are the like a lot of times like, oh, like what's your, like if your issues with the EU involve stuff like freedom of movement, you should probably reconsider. But like keep in mind there are a lot of arguments out there that are not there's a lot of Eurocritical arguments that are just thinly veiled racism, but then there are some that are not, like the fact, like I always think about, whenever I think about like a good case for the left being Eurosceptic, I always think of like how Germany just royally fucked over Greece when they were having their financial crisis.
Yeah.
It was fucking horrible. So yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, this should be fun. Why are political explainer channels such cowards? I was watching TLDR's news video.
What did you say about me?
I was watching TLDR News' video on the Swedish no confidence vote, and they called the Swedish Democrats calling Muslims non-human, quote, controversial statements.
Yeah, I mean TLDR. I feel like TLDR are often like, yeah, they want to be as non-offensive as possible because they really want to be a sort of like mainstream news channel, but on YouTube, um, or like a mainstream info channel thing. And you can't do that if you take a side in anything, unfortunately. Um,
Controversial comments to call people non-human.
yeah.
The fuck?
Yeah, that was the thing in Swedish politics for a bit. A lot of Swedish Democrats are fucked up. Like I'm saying, this is a party founded by a literal member of the SS. They haven't grown that well. Um, they've called let's see. They've had politicians that call Jews not fully Swedish. They've had people who say that the Sami people can't be fully Swedish. For a while, I think they still do actually. They've had like a proposition to eliminate or revoke citizenship to anyone who doesn't have at least two Nordic parents,
Ooh.
which which even excludes me because my dad's Dutch and that's not white enough according to them. Like they are fucked up when it comes to their statements. There's also been like multitudes. Several times their politicians have been like just caught during doing violent crime. Oftentimes having connections to still openly neo-Nazi movements, hoarding dynamite and Nazi memorabilia. A lot like 20 years ago, the Swedish Democrats were the type of like neo-Nazi movement that you saw. Like the people who would wear like KKK outfits in the UK and say that like they liked Hitler and they would be fine with the return of they would be fine if the Allies like lost the Second World War or some shit like that. You know, those type of like weird people that only like 10 people are actually part of. And then they had a rebrand where they pretended that they were just like pro Sweden while they were still doing everything sort of behind the scenes. And they got a bunch of support by people who are also racist, yeah, that's where we are.
I'm getting a question if fellow Swedish YouTuber, the Golden One, is a Swedish Democrat.
I don't think so. I think because there are some of the like extreme neo-Nazis, right, that have become who didn't like the rebrand. Like they don't want this like hyper conservatism. They want like full on neo-Nazism, and they won't take anything less. So there were a few like splinter groups after this rebrand, and one of them is called like Alternative for Sweden, which is obviously inspired by the German one. And there's another one called like Medborgerlig Samling, which is like the Gathering of Citizens, which is like a straight up fascist party. And I think he belongs to one of those ones that are still pretending to be part of mainstream politics, but at the same time are also like fascism is good actually.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Gosh, I haven't heard that guy in a while.
Some people think that the Swedish Democrats are too far left.
Oh, I hate it.
Yeah.
God, I haven't heard from the Golden One in ages.
Me neither.
He was another like a Milo, like a objectively hilarious character. Especially because he cosplayed as like a barbarian and talked about philosophy behind his bookshelf, and his bookshelf was completely filled with like fantasy novels.
I'm looking at his channel right now. He mostly posts about working out, as always, sun maxing, gains in the kitchen, elixir of ultimate health, and hypertrophy. I don't know what that is.
Sounds like when he seems like probably one
Alexa,
of the
Alexa, stop.
Alexa, please stop.
Alexa just started screaming at me. I don't know why.
I remember like in 2015 when there was a lot of money in being a fascist grifter, there was a lot more of them. But then when it stopped being profitable, a lot of them disappeared. So it sounds like he's tried to rebrand into a lifestyle channel for weirdos, I guess. I don't know.
Maybe.
I remember there was a point where he was starting to lose sponsorships because I guess his sponsors finally started watching the content that they were sponsoring.
Yeah, he got like sponsored by Swedish coffee brands who yeah, like eventually were like, hang on. His most recent video is common sense advice regarding the ladies. So I can't wait to see that.
Oh boy.
Don't watch it. Rip me his recommendations. I purge my search history once a week because of how toxic that YouTube is.
I have a entire YouTube profile which is called Watching Shit. And it's what I use whenever I need to watch like a shitty YouTube video.
God bless.
Because, and this was something that Thought Slime put on to me, which was that you do that, and if you have content that is somewhat revolving around, because the online left seems to be completely preoccupied with commenting on what right-wing people are doing because they have to constantly be leading the conversation, which is healthy and fun, yeah. But also
forever we have to chase them and never produce any worth of our own. Yes.
Yeah, but you can see what they're talking about by your recommendations just being full of their weird takes and stuff. Yeah. So that veered into talk of the Golden One very fast. That was interesting.
Very fast. Yeah. So sorry. That's my quick rant on the Swedish Democrats. But yeah. So TLDR classed those comments as controversial, because they are a bit spineless, but they're doing it for a cause where they want to become a bit more. They want to be a bit. They want to be mainstream on YouTube, and I followed them for a bit while they did the Brexit thing a few years ago, and they were pretty informative there, but like they're not doing that. They're not giving you a ton of stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah, as Pim Corman says, like they're alright if you want to get a basic understanding of something. Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, don't draw any like vibe conclusions from them though, because their vibes are.
This is actually the first I've ever heard of this channel, so this is news to me. But it sounds.
It's not a bad channel. They've grown significantly, but
Islamophobia is a thing that particularly like turns my crank, so I don't know if I would be able to walk back from that one, but yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, we got 5 more dingoes. Sweden is a pretty stable country with some of the highest living standards on Earth. What are you doing right?
Selling a lot of steel.
Yeah.
And also having like free healthcare, and that's basically it. Free healthcare, free schooling, and selling steel.
Yeah. So
and being smart enough to not have our entire industry bombed during the Second World War. I say smart. We lucked out on that one, obviously. So that when after the Second World War, all of Europe had to buy textiles from like one factory in Gothenburg, and that funded the entire Swedish welfare state for the next 40 years.
Yeah, I guess that works. Turns out having strategic resources is a way to... Being strategic resources and being a majority white country is a good way to keep the U.S. from invading you, which is the primary driver of countries falling apart these days.
Yeah, we don't have any oil either, so that's probably helped.
That's true. Can't wait for the day when... I don't know when it's going to be, but I can't wait for the day when they find out that Justin Trudeau is an evil dictator who's going to ruin Canada because Nestle wants our fresh water. No, yeah. You can't wait. Yeah, that's... I fully anticipate that I'm probably going to die in the same sort of area that I live in now, but it's going to be part of an occupied, American occupied territory, because I live where all the fresh water is.
Yeah, we're gonna be in a similar sea, I think.
A similar rising sea.
Well, you know what to say. A rising tide lifts all boats.
Oh boy. Okay. Next we got here is last month I said I was worried Manchin refusing to break the filibuster for voting rights might be the start of a domino effect that leads to a fascist takeover of the U.S. Yes, we know 255, who's actually not here today, has a bit of a catastrophizing problem. Suppose that is in fact destined to happen. Okay. Suppose you could take Manchin forward in time 10 years and show him where the GOP were able to permanently take over the U.S. because he refused to break the filibuster. Do you think that would even be enough to change his mind? Two ways to look at that. If you were to take Manchin forward and show that the U.S. had a fascist takeover because he refused to break the filibuster, he'd be like, where am I? Oh, retired in a nice fancy house. Okay, never mind.
It's fine.
But the other answer would be, I just did what the Democratic Party told me to do, which is the more accurate answer that I am convinced is true, which is that Manchin is most definitely the is doing a sort of like heel, like him and Kirsten Sinema have to play the heel in the kayfabe that is what they set up to make sure that the Democrats don't have to pass any of the legislation they campaigned on.
Yeah. That like there are tons of like staffers, I think, for like other Democratic politicians who have said that like if these politicians like flip on the filibuster, there are like dozens of other that it would also like be against removing the filibuster, but they don't have to. Like they can just take in good press by being like fake progressive because they know it's not going to happen anyway.
Mm-hmm.
If I think the second way that probably that like you could take, I think the third way would probably be that like you take him into the future, shows that this happened because he didn't fuck up, he didn't like relent on the filibuster. You take him back, he relents on the filibuster. You go back forward in time, and it still happens because now like some other Democrat has taken his heel.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like it doesn't. I don't think that his individuality would even matter.
Yeah, like I think that it's pretty important to mention that like the Democratic Party, if you look at you have to think of them what they really are. That people go into politics now to make money for the most part, especially people like Manchin. But that the Democratic Party is so hopelessly dedicated to making campaign contributions that their main thing is, and I've talked about this on the stream before, that the Democrats have a extremely left-wing base, but they have a donor class that gives them all their money that don't want any progressive legislation to happen. So what they do is that they like their preferred situation is to have the Republicans be in charge so that they can like raise the alarm about the end of the world so that they can fundraise money off of it. The Trump administration was like an absolute like record levels of money for the Democratic Party. They made shit tons of money. And since the Democratic Party is basically controlled by a revolving door like thing of corporate interests, but also like a professional class of like, you know, what do you call them? Like consultants and analysts and like staffers and stuff like that, that it's all like a money-making scheme. And so they want to get back into a position where they want to do all the things that the base wants, but they just can't do it because the Republicans are in charge. But they can't do that when Joe Biden wins Congress. And so I think they are very much crafting this media narrative of like, if it wasn't just for Joe Manchin and the anime girl from Arizona, we would have all of these great things that you want. So they can make the legislation look like way more progressive than they would ever be able to propose if they thought it would pass.
Yeah.
Like, keep in mind, these people hire like top of the line media strategists. So I don't know.
Like they know exactly what they're doing.
Yeah. So I don't know if there was a fascist takeover of America. I don't know if it wouldn't be like what's it called, like a Reichstag fire, great leader type situation. It would just be like a false democracy. The Republicans always win, and the Democrats would love that. That would be their bread and butter. They would They would pay their kids through college with that money because they can constantly be the hashtag resistance, which is the position they want to be in.
Yeah. Too real.
Yeah. Thank you. We got 5 more dingoes that asks, sounds like the mining that's kept our social democracy alive is also your government really the most unstable. What about Gustav the First?
Well, I wouldn't really call like Gustav's like King Gustavus like leadership like a government really like like I think there's like a slow transitionary period like in the 17 and 1800s where like governments become a thing and not just like a king and his buddies. So I mean you could say that like a kingdom has been more fragile than modern day governments, but you know it's also impossible to measure how it's also impossible to measure like what unstable means. Like you can't there's nothing objectively unstable. What I mean more is like the government that is probably going to be voted through on Wednesday is going to be voted in with like the least support of any minority government has ever been voted in on.
Sounds
Because
fun.
Swedish like elections in Riksdag doesn't really work in the same way that like you'd think. Because to get a government through, you don't need a majority of votes in your favor. You just don't need a majority against you. Which means that if 49.9% of the Riksdag votes against your government and only 5% votes in favor of the government, and everyone else abstains, that government is passed. It becomes government. Which means that it's a bit easier to form a minority government, but it also means that it's also way harder to like do politics in those situations.
Yeah. Proportional representation means that elections are a lot more chaotic.
Yeah. At least we're not having an extra election, so thank God for that.
Yeah. Whoa. Sorry, I fidgeted in a weird way. Okay. Now this is a much more fun question, and that is, okay, interesting. I thought it was twisted the other way, so this would be good. So it's Tristan. What's the most Swedish thing that you've done? And Mia, what's the most Canadian thing that you've done?
Oh wow.
Now, I feel like our countries do have a lot of overlap because we both are place cold. Cold and north. Lots of tree. Many tree. So the most Swedish thing I've done is... Gosh, I'm trying to think if I've eaten anything that is like made of fish and is like fermented or like intentionally rotted for some reason.
Yeah.
And then one thing I thought was Swedish, you've informed me, is actually Danish or German, which is Playmobil.
Yeah, that sounds German. Playmobil sounds German.
Which was my mom.
Then Lego, it's Danish.
Because like my mom really was into Playmobil when I was a kid, so decided that I needed to have these things, even though I hated them. Have I ever had fish that tastes like ammonia and has the consistency of Jello? I don't think so.
It's tasty.
Okay, even the Swedes I talked to have said it's not tasty; it's just tradition.
Okay, but they're wrong. It is actually tasty, in my opinion. Like I might be one of the few Swedes who actually like it.
For those in the chat who don't know what this is, it's a wonderful traditional Christmas dish called lutefisk, which is made by...
No. Oh, we might be thinking of different things. Yeah, lutefisk is not something that I eat either.
It's where you take fish and you put lye on it, then you bury it in your backyard for several months to eat on Christmas Day. It apparently tastes like ammonia and has the consistency of Jello.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, I don't like that either. That's true. No one likes that.
Was I thinking of surströmming? I know that you like that stuff.
Yeah, I was thinking of surströmming. I misheard.
So the longest I'm trying to think of this. What is like a quintessentially Swedish thing to do? Because I'm at a loss of like what is Swedish culture really. I don't know what the
Yeah, I know that
stereotype
a
about
lot, like
Swedish
that's
people is.
Canadian. I think the most because yeah, the only thing I can come up with in terms of Canadian is like I have a lot. I like maple syrup. I have maple syrup on pancakes sometimes. I think that's Canadian,
Yeah, it can be.
but I don't know anything.
We do have a strategic maple syrup reserve. That was heisted once, and there's going to be a movie made about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the closest thing I could think of is that in Quebec they have something called there's a holiday that is called Saint Jean Baptiste Day, which is a Catholic holiday for the. It's a feast to Saint John the Baptist, but it's kind of like Saint Patrick's Day, but for Quebec. But the thing is that it's like June 24th, and it involves a giant bonfire, and I'm like that. Having a giant bonfire in the middle of summer does feel at least somewhat Swedish. I mean, I didn't put like flowers in my hair or anything like that, or sacrifice somebody by hanging them, but close enough.
Yeah. No, but that sounds Swedish. I'd say that counts.
The most Canadian thing I've ever done is apologize to a table for bumping into it.
I feel like I've done that too.
So the thing is, like, do Swedes have are Swede is the stereotype of Swedish people like also that they're meek and polite?
Maybe not polite, but definitely like quiet. And sort of like meekness is definitely like a sort of thing that people think when they self-identify in Swedish. I wouldn't say polite though. We're rude as fuck.
There was that one time where I got on a boat and stole a bunch of shit from a church, which is also kind of Swedish, I guess.
Yeah, it's true.
But the context was completely different. Alrighty, what do we got next? I saw that question this morning, and I was like, I got to think about this and prepare a good answer. And then I went on to not do that.
Yeah. I know the feeling.
All right, Mia, when I asked you that question about magically turning female when you were 8, you said you didn't know what trans people even were at that age. What was your understanding of gender at that age? When I was 8, I think I recognized that whether you were born male or female was luck of the draw. But I also thought of being born a female was bad luck. Oh, God.
Ooh. I don't think I had any thoughts around gender at the time, like really at all. Honestly, I feel like at the time, my thought were like genitals determine, and that's it. And then I went on to like watch like cartoons on TV. I don't think I thought that much about gender at the age of 8. I don't think I thought much of anything at all, to be honest. Trying to survive grade 1.
I mean, I was reading advanced theory when I was 8, of course.
Well, of course, in the age of 8, I had only just started with the foundational works of Marx.
Yeah.
But it was not until the age of 9 when I really began digging into the state and the revolution for my grade 2 book report.
I'm trying to think. When I was, like, yeah. When you're 8, so the ways that gender seem to exist when you're 8 are like, well, which is the one that has cooties and which one doesn't? That's important.
Yeah.
A terrible, debilitating disease that is spread through touch and doing romantic things.
Exactly.
And also, what color toys that you have? Because the toy, like, for the fact that like kids don't think about gender much, people who make toys for children think a lot about gender.
They really do. God, yeah, you take a lot of things for granted.
Yeah.
Not in a good way.
Colin just gave me 5 pounds of silver, which is nice. Thank you. Thank you for the
Like,
great British pounds. And this is a really good one. This is a really good question that I am genuinely curious about. How is climate change? How big of an issue is climate change in Sweden? And specifically, how is Greta considered domestically?
this is
Oh,
a good question because people here really don't give a shit about climate change or Greta Thunberg.
really?
Basically at all. It became like a little bit of a thing. Like the summer she did the school protests. Um, and I know that it's like part of some politicians' plan, but like really most people don't talk about it at all. Um, um, yeah, Greta, like after her school strike became like moderately popular here, it became like a more global thing where like more school strikes happened and she became like elevated to a more international stage. But as that happened, she kind of disappeared from Swedish media, like entirely. Like Americans care way more about Greta Thunberg than we do. Um, we she was around for a little bit during her like major hype, and then like I don't think I've heard about anything relating to her in years, like in over a year maybe. Um, and people don't really talk about her that much, honestly. I know that is something that people. I know climate change is something that people sometimes talk about, um, but it's also very much in the context of like we're doing better than everyone else,
Yeah, I
so
always
we
like
don't need to do anything.
the perception here from like over here is that Europe is doing a lot better than we are, which like obviously that's true because we're. I mean, I'm coming to you from one of the most environmentally destructive countries on the planet, so that's not the hardest thing to do.
Mm.
Unless like Sweden's secretly digging oil out of the ground with like shovels and trucks and but it's interesting.
Yeah, we don't really do that, but like we don't. As far as I know, we don't really have like a big coal industry because we have so many rivers, right? Because we're a very oblong country with tons of rivers going through it. So we have a lot of like hydroelectric energy, um, and we have some like geothermal energy, like some I think in the mountains. But I don't think we have like a lot of like coal heavy jet energy production as much as like the US has, for example, or many other countries.
Makes sense. Okay.
I couldn't tell you anything more modern than that. We have an environmental party, but no one cares about them.
We have a Green Party right now that's having an internal revolution. Like it's tearing itself internally over positions towards Israel. So it's going great here too.
Lovely.
Because they got a new leader that's like explicitly pro-Israel. But it was just weird because the Canadian Green Party is actually like not a left-wing party, which is a weird like it's actually kind of like a almost right of center party, which is like just absolutely wild. But that's its own
Yeah,
thing.
especially in the Canadian. I feel like in Canadian, like in North American politics, that's like pretty right wing.
Yeah, well, I think that like the Canadian, like it's very pro green capitalism and stuff like that, and like has a at least they recently replaced leader. The old leader, she actually was like an immigrant from the United States who every time that she was in a leader debate, they brought up the fact that she has had not so great positions on abortion and stuff like that, and has kind of expressed that she thought 9/11 was an inside job. But like
That didn't really stop. What's his name? The guy who just died and now has a YouTube channel. Mike Gravel.
Yeah,
Didn't stop him.
fair. I'm trying to remember. She also there was this one time where we had like the Canadian version of the White House Press Corps Association dinner, and she got drunk and talked about how great Omar Khadr was, and like Omar Khadr was like this whole story about a Canadian citizen who got captured for fighting for the Taliban in Afghanistan and then was held in Guantanamo Bay for like 15 years, and he was like 15 years old when that happened.
Oh, no.
and he got released. Like the U.S. finally released him to Canada, and he was released. But it was like very controversial because Canadians were like, "Rah, rah, rah." But yeah, it's so weird. And yeah, then the Canadian, the Green Party leader, the new one, she's like much more right wing than Elizabeth May, especially when it comes to like Israel. For some reason, apparently that was a really big part of the Green Party's new positions, to the part where there are 2 MPs that are Green in Canadian Parliament, and one of them crossed the aisle and joined the Liberals over it. So, and now they're having like an internal like fight for a party that has 2 seats and generally gets like 9% of the popular vote. So we'll see where that goes.
9% is pretty good, though. Just 2 seats. Oh, I keep forgetting that your democracy is broken.
Yeah.
Because typically that would be more than 2 seats.
We have like 2 seats, and also one of them is basically an independent who switched parties to become Green.
Lovely.
Yeah. Okay. Next question is, do you use a Mac, PC, or Linux?
PC.
Yes. I have 2 computers, a desktop and a laptop. My desktop is a PC. My laptop is neither of those 3 things. It is a... what's it called? It's right here. It is a Chromebook.
Oh.
It uses the Google operating system that they made for laptops.
Is it good? Do you like it? Do you like Chromebook? I've never talked to someone who actually had a Chromebook.
It is not an everyday use. Well, it is an everyday use thing, but it is limited in what it can do. But in return for that, you get very good battery life, and also you get like a pretty cheap computer. Like this was pretty cheap. It doesn't. It has almost like, it is probably less powerful than my cell phone, but you know, if you want to,
it does the job basically.
Yeah, it is a word processor that I can use on the back deck, which is all I wanted. So, and it was a good price. So I think overall it was a win.
That's great. Yeah, I've considered getting one just so I can, because I do have a laptop as well, which is the computer I had before I had the desktop I had right now. But before I am a hashtag gamer, I wanted something that could play Fallout 4, so I had to get one of those like big chunky like laptop computers that's like this thick. It has like 2 external fans that like screams into it. And though that, you know, that can suit you very well for a while, but it doesn't really work that well when you want to go to like the cafe, for example, to write a script or something.
Mm-hmm. I will say it's been very good. I have been unnaturally productive when I've gotten it. Like on the back deck, for some reason I can like write like there's no tomorrow. Well, it takes me forever to write on my desktop. So I don't know what I finished the first draft of my script a day early today. So
hey,
just having my coffee on the back deck in the morning before it got too hot.
Less. Yeah, you gotta have that. Like I can't, you know, I can't really take my chunky gaming laptop like to the balcony.
Yeah.
It doesn't vibe as much.
I think it also works because it is not a gaming laptop. First of all, yeah. I've kind of weirdly stopped playing games, but that's a different thing. That's just
you're free.
That's just me being weird. They just don't give me dopamine anymore. But also just like cutting myself off from pretty much all of the distractions of having a like powerful PC to just being like, yeah, this is like basically a Android tablet with a keyboard.
That's a dream.
That is one cool thing about this thing that I think is neat, which is that like you can like open it all the way around and then it's a tablet, which I think is kind of cool.
Yeah, that's pretty practical.
Yeah. But yeah, but yeah, it's very like it's this I got for probably like $200 cheaper than I would have gotten a laptop. But like that's because when you buy one, you're like, yeah, it's for emails and watching YouTube videos and a word processor. Like it starts chunking when I'm like browsing the web while also having Spotify open.
That's the good life right there.
Yeah. But I think that in many ways, like especially when it's like something like writing, which is a thing that I think every writer hates doing, or hates like it takes forever to get into the zone for doing it. That like
Yeah.
intentionally limiting your options in such a way is actually really good.
Yeah, I feel like that's something that I need. Like, I can't even write on my phone at this point because there's too much distractions.
Yeah. And also it takes like no time to set up. And the thing is too that I like it because like a gaming PC, I don't know how long you could last on this, but this thing's battery can last like 15 hours or something like that.
Amazing.
Yeah. Okay. Next question we got here is, if this Democratic administration is going to be prevented from getting anything done, is it maybe better in the long run if one of the progressive candidates didn't win the 2020 primary and become president? Like, suppose the Biden administration gets nothing done and loses in 2024, then the 2028 primary, you're going to have to try and get the party to support a progressive nominee. Now, imagine if it had been 4 ineffective years of Warren, or rather Biden, every time you try to draw up support for AOC or whatever, people would begin to say, well, we voted for progressive last time and nothing changes. Why would AOC be different? At least in this timeline, we won't have to deal with that. Man, I don't know why I get asked so many, like, what would happen in this parallel reality where everything was different situations. But I think what I would say to this is, I think you're explaining exactly why, if AOC did try to run for the Democratic primary, she would lose, because I think I'm coming into the conclusion that the Democratic primaries are also a kayfabe. And it is made to give the illusion that something is happening, when the second anybody actually comes close to winning, they circle the wagons and shut everything down. Or do we forget that the second and third place candidates dropped out to support the person in fifth place? And that because he won slightly in the least democratic primary of the entire primary season thus far, the one with no same-day registration and no advanced polling and all that stuff. Like, it's like, the Democratic Party has a long history of ignoring the will of its people in order to put in the people they want to put in. And if AOC ran and was like an actual threat to the system, like, I know that this makes me sound absolutely unhinged at this point, but like, if Bernie had won the primaries, he'd have been shot. Like, they would not have allowed that to happen.
Yeah.
He would either have been shot, or it would have been like Jeremy Corbyn, where the Democrats would have actively worked to undermine it, because I think that the Democrats thought that he was a bigger threat than Donald Trump.
Oh, for 100%, for sure. No, but here's also where I get into it, because like I'm also thinking in regards to Bernie Sanders, that like Bernie did like better initially, I think, that like the last primary than he did the first primary against Hillary Clinton, right? If I don't remember that correctly, like initially, before the wagon circle.
Yeah, so the thing about the difference mainly was that in 2016, I think he was running in kind of the same way that Mike Gravel ran for president in 2020, that it was an attempt to just push, to have somebody who was on the left wing run, and to kind of push the leadership more to the left. But then he just got surprisingly well, and he had that shock win in Iowa, and that sort of turned the tables around. The second time around, it was very obvious that it was like Bernie Sanders and everybody who's trying to take him down.
Yeah, because like he did okay, despite also having to share every single nominee, every single like delegate with like 18 different other primary people. So the point that I'm trying to come up with here is that AOC would probably lose. Like a very progressive candidate would probably lose in the next primary. But they should still do it. They should still like, try to primary themselves into power, or into becoming the nominee, because that can give them the sort of like political capital that they can then carry over into the next one, like Bernie Sanders did.
Yeah, like the fact is, like, as somebody who was a socialist before 2016, I have like it's
One of the three socialists in North America.
yeah.
I'm kidding.
Well, you're not as kidding as you should be. Um, but like, what it means is like I know pretty well that like Bernie Sanders had, and I'm going to make a video on this sometime in the future because it's one I really want to do. That Bernie Sanders has had an absolute like astronomical change on American politics, and has also spread to like Western politics in general. Canada's been pretty resistant. Like socialism's been pretty actively suppressed here in Canada. Like our Jeremy Corbyn lost the leadership race of our Social Democratic Party in favor of a Social Democrat. But like, yeah, like we wouldn't be asking questions about, oh, how effective was the Bernie Sanders, even though it's like, oh, how could he be effective? He didn't even win. Don't like the people who say that haven't been paying attention to politics before 5 years ago, because
Even the existence of like the online left as it exists today, like obviously the online left is like the least important aspect of this, but the fact that it even exists today is because of that. Like, I have vague memories of being online in like 2000 and being online in like 2000
starting again.
12. Socialism was not a thing people talked about at all.
yeah. Have I got a new camera lighting? I got a nice new light and I got a haircut, so I don't know. But I just realized we are at 2:00.
Oh shit!
The time flies.
It do.
But before we call it for today, would you like to tell everybody where to find Mia content?
Yeah, you can find Mia content on miamulder.com, where it will take you to my YouTube channel. You can also go to you can also search for Leech Fest on wherever you listen to podcasts, where me and a friend are doing a podcast on medical history, which is very fun. We just released an episode on the history of autism and neurodivergence, which I think is very interesting, and I think that you should definitely check in on. You can also find my Twitter on twitter.com/potatopolitics, or you can also find me on Twitch on twitch.tv/Mia Mulder, where I will maybe stream something this week. I'm in the middle of editing my upcoming video, and it's like an hour long, so I have to do a lot of work.
Nice.
But we'll see.
Yep. I'll be here tomorrow, guys. I'm going to send y'all to go see Emily. And I'll see you guys next time, and be good to yourself, be good to each other, and stay cool.